program. And here we are at the final oil separation over on U.S. Steel property. I probably shouldn't be over here, but we're also going to talk about security awareness today too. So, maintained by Environmental Control West, call 3210. But where does some of our waste go to from over on the EJ&E property? You probably just thought it went down in the ground, but no, it comes over here. What actually comes over here, Bobo?
I believe all the like stormwater from the fuel pit.
Yeah, from the fuel pit. Okay. Anyhow, it's a pretty nice facility. I've never been over here before, and they're probably never going to let me go again. So anyhow, here we are. It's a good-sized pit, and it hasn't been here that long. Well, we can't see through the fence very well, but we'll see what it looks like later. But it's quite a facility for sifting out all the stuff out of the water and cleaning it up. Yes. You can see over here where it's just overflow, it looks like. But it doesn't look like that old of a facility. But I just wanted you guys to know where this is at, or where it's at. It's way out on the west end, almost by Clark Road, and then we had to turn back in by U.S. Steel, but that's good to know. And you know, ISO 14001 goes hand in hand with stormwater pollution. Anything to make the environment better, I think, is a good thing. And there's the same thing on the other side over there, so. You could almost swim in it. ISO 14001 and stormwater pollution almost go hand in hand. Environmental processes to keep the world better. We're out here with 661 sitting right here. It'll be serviceable probably in about a month, or at least ready for paint. Well, we're out here at the pad where you fuel things out at the service pit. Fuel the locomotives. And some years back they built this beautiful pad to catch anything that would drip down. And it goes into a container and it sifts over and over and over until what's coming out goes into our water, and it goes over to another area where it sifts more and gets cleaned up before it actually goes into the water supply. And anything down in here gets pumped out and goes to a reclamation factory or place. Store hazardous waste. This facility isn't that old and it's pretty nice out here. Unfortunately, we got a locomotive on the pit right here right now, so you can't see it too well, but otherwise you can see where it all drains right in, and it's a big cement pad that it comes over with a tank below it. And like I say, it's got areas that clean it up little by little by little. Get a little different view just to show you how much long this is. Pretty long. Like I say, it catches anything that drips, and the rainwater runs it down and takes care of everything, and any of the overflow goes through a pipe over to the other side, and we'll see. You come to the other side and you see where it comes right up. This is where it comes over to for the first cleanup. Before it goes further and further through the system all the way over to the other side of the hump, where we have a 10,000 gallon cleanup facility. That Greg Pluta, he is the one who checks everything, and weekly they release things back into out of the area here, out of the EJ&E facility. Of course, this is our new oil container here. You notice it's all contained. And the tank's over there. We'll go the other way. You can see that they have the barriers around them in case anything was to break, you know, and would contain it back in there like we spoke about earlier in the stormwater pollution. You have to be careful out here by the tracks, aware of anything that's coming around. Of course, you can see that all the tanks are marked. Hazardous material, MSDS. But like I say, this is all going to go down the road further to where there's on the other side of the hump for our facility. Of course, outside of 40 pit, you know, everything, all of our graded pits, all the water gets washed, they all get washed out, and it comes to the end, and it comes through this area. If it gets cleaned up a little bit, and they take care of it once a month, and then it'll also go way out to the west side, over past the hump out there on the other side, where we have the 10,000 gallon facility to clean up the water. Of course, we see this tank over here where we're dumping filters. It looks like it could use a little bit of maintenance over here, maybe a little cleanup. And there is a sewer line right there, but I checked that out with Greg Pluta. He said that does go to our facility, so it all gets cleaned up. But maybe we can do something out here, maybe something with the filters before they get put in here to drain them a little better. And maybe get that a little bit closer to the wall there. Move it out, clean it up with a bobcat, something. So, well, yes, this comes from the end of the building here. Of course, when we turn around, this just passes all the way through the building. You guys see them pick up these tops once in a while and clean these out right here. You know how it is, they get a lot of mess in the pits, and they spray clean them out and wash them out real nice, and it all drains out here and comes on along the building here. Of course, here we are at 30 pit. Many times we have to drain the oil on the locomotives, and when we do, they do it right here at 30 pit. Of course, it's got this little containment area right there where to use like a funnel and everything to come down into the hole there. And this is a big tank that gets pumped out once in a while. I don't know how many gallons it holds, but if need be, it holds quite a bit. Well, we drained it down into this hole over here. And of course, like I say, it gets pumped out and reclaimed, and that's good. I saw on History Channel recently, floor dry being the best thing for 90% of the spills in America. Of course, we use floor dry. There goes Sean by. Hello, Sean. Pretty good. Of course, we have oil dry throughout the whole shop along the circle, inside and outside. And like I say, a lot of times when they pull out a locomotive, if it has a spill, you know, along the tracks, we try to throw a little down, contain it, and plus stop any tripping hazards or anybody tripping through it. But of course, 30 pit here is always this way a little bit, because hey, that's what it's for, is to drain oil. And of course, we're on 22 pit here, which we call the wash pit. At this pressure washer over here, down there, and they bring in the locomotives and wash them before the test. And if it had any damage like oil or anything that happened, it would come out and we'd have to wash them off if something happened inside and got oil all over the house of the engine. And of course, these graded pits, this is what I'm talking about, and you guys already all know. So but they all come out and they get washed on a drain at the end of them and come out to here and go on down over to 40 pit and then over to the other side of the hump. And there's 661 coming back now that I'm down over here. So he'll be ready for service before you know it. Of course, I'm sure the turntable there down, you know, all drains out too and everything. So, but it all gets cleaned up, because you can't release water to the city, you know, that's not clean. A pH factor has to be met and everything else. And documentation, that's what ISO 14001, part of that's about, is documentation. See, like emissions too, that's the main part about it. A lot of the engines we're rebuilding are, you know, going to be much better off than they were before. And I'm sure the computerized helps everything, just like it does in cars. But we have an old fleet that we're rebuilding. I'm sure that helps the emissions. But I would suppose with a 14001, if you had a big spill out on the road out to Joliet or something, that would all have to be documented, or any kind of emissions problem. And you know, you see that one film every year with the girl with spills that little bit of powder, and she's worried about it going down the drain. Well, that's what we do here. It gets all cleaned up before it goes. Of course, here we are in the back shop, where we have a stack of bug boxes filled up, containment tanks. Contains oil spilled between the tracks. I believe they started putting these on because we work at Commonwealth Edison property and they wouldn't allow us to come on the property, although we would have put them on anyhow, because the emerald green dragonfly, which is near extinction, lives on this property, and this might damage their ecostructure and kill them off. We don't want to do that. I find dragonflies as mystical creatures. Sure, I fear them, as most insects, yet I find them fascinating creatures. But anyhow, every year we see the film with Rick Chapman over at US Steel for the ISO 14001, and they say the word sight to remember. You have to comply, improve, train, and evaluate all employees about the environmental process. And it deals more with emissions than stormwater, but then again, you know, do we turn off locomotives? Should we? Can that open up a whole barrel of problems? I believe that one guy had a good idea about building the roof over the Kirkyard, but he may have been ahead of his time. Maybe small areas to turn off locomotives more and not have to worry about the train, or the rain, I'm sorry. The rain on the train falls mainly in Kirkyard. But anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this little bit. And isn't this just what we're after? A beautiful day. A beautiful lakefront in Chicago. And who would have ever thought it? Oh yeah. Blue, that's blue water. And a sandy beach. A beautiful day, May 24th, 2005. April 2007. Extended footage. Someplace where you may never be. Someplace where I've never been. Here we are on the south side of the hump. Yes, this is where it all comes to. Let's move in a little closer here so we can see everything. Cause this tank, geez, I don't know how big this is. I'm gonna say it's 10 to 20,000 gallon tank. It's huge. It's humongous. We have a lot of equipment here on the end of it. Monitoring system, heating systems. Technical stuff that Greg Pluta works with. That's even a telephone interface. We know what that is. Maybe a computer system might be hooked up to here. I'm not sure. Oh my. But as you can see, and we will see, it's a big tank in this area, which all this pumps to. Well, you can see this pipe right here. This pipe going up. That's probably where it gets pumped in, and it's insulated around there. I hear a train coming by, but we're not standing on the tracks. It's the NS. Anyhow, Here you've got this huge tank over here. Obviously our stuff